Morning all, welcome to 5 on Friday for the, 9th of August. It's my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Amber. I have had a really busy week this week. I've spoken at the Gold Coast Hitch Librarians network meeting, the Revive network for the Gold Coast, which is fantastic. And yesterday I spoke at a school in Brisbane, St Finbarrs. I spoke at their staff meeting and did a little bit of PD and talking around building a reading culture in a school. And then I spoke to parents from their school and also from the local community, and it was really, really lovely. I super enjoyed it, and yeah, it was just really nice. But it's been a super busy week, and the reason that I'm coming to you a bit early today is that I am off for a weekend to celebrate my dad's birthday, a significant birthday, which we're not allowed to talk about, and it also would have been Dan's birthday tomorrow, so we're going to do something special for him as well. Probably eat, I don't know if any of you know those Darrelly, they're like a Jaffa, but they're a large one. Darrelly used to make them before they were bought out by somebody, and they're still available, but they were his favourite lolly, and my mum got them for him every birthday, so I think we'll probably eat some of those tomorrow. It's hard celebrating a birthday of somebody that's passed away, but I think it's nice to mark it as well. Anyway, I've got 5 really, really great books that I want to share with you today. So whilst I know I'm coming at a different time and a lot of you won't necessarily see me live, I hope that lots of you do watch this later, because the books I'm sharing today are just, I don't know, I just really, really deeply love all of them. The first one that I want to show you is Searching for Cicadas, and it's by Leslie Gibbs and Judy Watson. So I'm sure most of you know this, but I always say this to my kids at school, and it's probably a nice reminder for adults. On a book, on a picture book, the author is always listed first, and then the illustrator. So Leslie Gibbs is the author and Judy Watson is the illustrator. Now, Leslie Gibbs is an award-winning children's book author, and her last book was Fluke, which was about a whale, and I absolutely adored that book. It's really clever. It's what I would call a narrative nonfiction. It's got a story component to it, but on the end papers there's all this these facts about whales, and the end papers I think are very much a part of the story, and I really loved it. So I was really pleased to see that she's written one in the Nature Storybook series, which Walker Books, oh gosh, I think it's Walker Books, it is, thank goodness, that Walker Books does, because this has been one of my favourite series for a really, really long time now. I think it's really important that we read nonfiction with our little people, and the Nature Storybook series is a really good sort of soft introduction to nonfiction. It's like I was just saying, a narrative nonfiction. So it's got a story component to it, and then it's got some nonfiction elements. So for example, in all of the books, in all of the series, the story part of it, the fiction part of it, is in one font, and then the non-fiction part of it, the facts, are in a totally different font. I don't know how clearly you can see that there, but I really love that. What I also love about this series is that they've got information at the back, further information about whatever area of nature we're looking at. They've got information about the author and the illustrator, and they've also got an index. Librarians love an index. They're a very efficient way of finding information in a book, and I think it's really great that for a narrative nonfiction series for quite young children, they've really made an effort to include an index, because it is an important part of the nonfiction book. So, and I like what it says here. It says, look up the pages to find out all about these cicada things. Don't forget to look up both kinds of words, this kind and this kind. So it's super duper great. Sorry, I'm just trying to, sorry, couldn't see the comments there. Now, this one is exquisite. I think I've said this every time a new one in the Nature Storybook series has come out, and I'm really, really loving using Dingo at the moment. But gosh, this one just really resonated with me. It's a story, hang on, first of all, look at those end papers. Aren't they exquisite? And I started this week with my kindy kids by saying, yeah, so the end papers, as you know, give us a clue to the story, and I think these end papers mean that the book might be set in Antarctica. And they're all like, and eventually Hugo was like, that's not Antarctica, Mrs. Daly. I was like, you are right, Hugo. That is not Antarctica. I think that might be a forest floor. And we talked about the colours and what country that probably represented, and all that sort of thing. So, Searching for Cicadas. It is a really beautiful story about a grandfather and his grandchild going on a camping night away searching for cicadas. And I think this was what made me just fall in love with the book. I am having all sorts of problems giving you the front cover there. Look at that grandfather. He's just so beautiful. And I really, really love books that celebrate grandparents. Obviously, since my husband's passed away, grandparents have been a really key focus in my kids' lives, and my dad stays overnight on a Wednesday night to spend time with the girls and help me out. It's exhausting. And I just love that grandfathers are celebrated in this book, and he is absolutely a beautiful one. I'm really struggling with where I'm meant to be sitting today. Ooh. In the summertime, Grandpa and I go cicada watching. I collect the tent and the sleeping bags, and Grandpa packs the cooler. So that's the sort of introduction to the story. And then it says, a cicada is a large flying insect. It has a stout body with 6 legs and 2 pairs of wings that fold over its back. So you can do a few things with this book. You can just read the story first time through, and then you can come back and look at the non-fiction part of it, or you can do both at once. I tend to do both at once, but if you've got a really young group or a group that you don't think will sit for the entire length of a story, although it's very engaging, you can just read maybe the storybook part first. It is such a beautiful story. It explains a lot about cicadas. I didn't actually know how many varieties of cicadas there were, and there's quite a lot even represented in this book. It says the green grocer, the yellow Monday, and the black prince cicadas are all named after their colour. Some cicadas, like the double drummer, are named after the sound they make. And so it goes on. Look at that illustration. And for my bird watching daughter, she spotted blue fairy wren on the tent there. And there's butterflies that you can identify. It's such a beautiful scene of camping. I really loved it, even though actually technically I don't enjoy camping. Now, Judy Watson is a very, very favourite illustrator of mine, and I follow her on Instagram, and I really love seeing the story behind the story of her illustrations. I spent a lot of time with my kindy kids this week. I think they were getting a bit sick of it. I would say, this one's my favourite page, boys and girls, and then I turn to the next page and say, actually, this is also a favourite page. But what I was explaining to them, and I don't even know if this is correct, and I don't think Judy Watson is probably watching, but what I was saying to my kindy boys and girls was about the layers in the book. And I said to her, and I'd love to know if this is the case, I think that she's created those by first doing the background and then by doing the foreground with the tree. So I think she's done the wash of the background first and the moon, and then she's added the trees. And then she's added the foreground. There's a real sense of depth in these illustrations, which I really liked. There's a very distinct foreground and background, and then there's close-ups, and then there's almost scientific illustrations of the cicadas, which is really good given it's a non-fiction book. And throughout all of the book, the grandfather is my favourite. He's just so warm. The kids here are looking at the camera because the little grandchild finally got a photograph of a black prince cicada. But, you know, Granddad's up looking at this cicada that's flying up here. This is my see, I'm talking to you like I'm talking to my kindy kids. This is my favourite page in the book. But no, I think this one is my favourite. And I would really, I'm really hoping Judy Watson maybe does some prints from this book, because I would love to buy a print of this page. I love the grandfather and the grandchild lying on the grass, looking up at the cicadas swirling around them, and they're laying in the shadow of a tree. And my kindy boys and girls really got that. I was like, where do you think they are? What perspective are we looking at? And, you know, what point of view is the author illustrator trying to give us? And they could see that that was the shadow of the tree, and they could see all of the different species of cicadas. Gosh, I think it's great. Well done, Leslie Gibbs and Judy Watson. Exquisite. It's one of those books I want to hug. Really, really enjoy it. Okay, my next book is Explore Dinosaurs, and this one particularly appealed to me because it says on the blurb, I'm Eric Eagle, Senior Librarian of the Eagle-Eyed Explorer Club. Years ago, the club recruited me as one of its special agents, codename Agent Eagle. My latest mission is not only top secret, but very dangerous. The club wants a report on the entire histories of dinosaurs. It looks like I'll need to go back millions of years. Are you brave enough to come along with me? This is clearly one for the dinosaur lovers amongst us, of which there is many at my school, both male and female. It starts with dinosaur identification, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the dinosaur names, but we all know that little people obsessed with dinosaurs are very good at pronouncing the tricky dinosaur names. And then it goes through dinosaur lives, and it goes through all sorts of, goes through dinosaur survival. I think it's got a really nice layout in terms of all of the text boxes. Again, it's a good example of a non-fiction book in the sense that it's made good use of book design. So there's captions and there's labels and there's text boxes, which are all really important things to discuss with your children in terms of helping them to navigate their way around a non-fiction book and a picture book. So I just really, really liked it. I'll be honest and say I have not read the entire thing, although I've read most of it because I do have a dinosaur-loving 8-year-old. And then look at this. There's like a great big fold-out at the back, and everybody loves a big fold-out, which now I'm not going to be able to put back in while I'm on Facebook Live. But it's one of those books that I think is just incredibly giftable. I didn't do a good job of that. Incredibly giftable, and it's a good one about dinosaurs. And yeah, it's not naff. I've seen a lot of dinosaur books of late that I just am like, nah, move on. So yeah, that one I absolutely love. Next one I want to show you is my last picture book for today, and it's called Lunch at Pomegranate Street, a collection of recipes to share. It is a Scribble book production, and it was originally published in French, and it's just exquisite. Again, this one is very giftable. This one is now my new coffee table book. It feels beautiful. Scribble do a really, really beautiful job of their production quality. You want to touch them. They're very soft, beautiful covers. There's often embossing used. They do a very good job. Their production quality is excellent. Their design is excellent. Well done, Scribble and Scribe. Love the end papers. In fact, I would like those as a shirt. To me, that is very gourmand-esque. I don't know if any of you like gourmand brand clothing and design, but that is very on-trend gourmand. So, you know, Scribble, if you could do something about getting that made into a shirt for me, that would be fab. I like the stairs here leading up to this apartment block. Okay, now for those of you who've followed me for a long time, you will know I love food. I'm completely obsessed with food, and I love cooking. Cooking is my happy place. When I'm really stressed, I like to cook. I love black beans, and I know my chef friend Nick won't be watching this, but Nick really put me onto black beans years ago, and I obsessively buy tins of black beans now, proper Mexican ones. I love them. Okay, the dedication is beautiful for my mother, whose door is always open and whose table is always full. I really hope my girls will one day say that about me. Girls, if you're listening. Something smells good at 10 Pomegranate Street. Delicious, actually. How great are pomegranates to eat, and how great is the word pomegranate? It just rolls around in your mouth. Love it. In this kitchen, and then we go through all manner of different people that live in 10 Pomegranate Street, which, as you can see, is an old house or block of flats. And we meet all of these fabulous characters from all different nationalities. I like this one. Mr. Ping stir-fries some broccoli. His nephew Benjamin calls them little trees. And then on the opposite page to the text is the recipe. And the recipes are really gorgeous. They're illustrated recipes, so your ingredients are illustrated with captions. And then there's the steps down here for this one, in this case for sesame, soy, broccoli. It has the feel almost of a scrapbook. It feels like something, it feels like a family recipe book that you've been keeping for many, many years, and it's got handwritten annotations in it and little drawings and scribbles in the side. It's just exquisite. Maria's mashing avocados with a fork for her guacamole. You know, black bean soup. I'm going to make that one, actually. I will admit I haven't made any of the recipes from this book yet, but I'm going to try and make all of them. Oh gosh, I just really love it. Following you is so easy. Reading and food. What else is there? Yeah, I know, right? Books, reading and food. What else is there, actually? Thank you for saying that. I couldn't agree with you more. I really love it. I'm a big fan of dal. Like, I make dal probably every week, so I'm going to try this coconut dal recipe. It's a very, very similar to the one that I make, almost identical. It's just beautiful. It's a great one, obviously, to discuss nationalities and their foods, but more than anything, it's a really beautiful look at community and diversity and coming together. I'm still going. I'm still flicking through the book. Oh my gosh, because then everything is ready. It's time to go downstairs, pull up a chair and grab a plate. Everybody's welcome at 10 Pomegranate Street. And there they are having their shared lunch. How beautiful is that? I just love it. And then we are back to the end papers, which I just realized I paused for a tick. I reckon the end papers are the background of this sort of scene, wouldn't you say? I think I'm correct. I've just noticed that. Gosh, I can't recommend this book highly enough as a gift for you know, foodie loving parents and children. If any of you are in the Chat 10 Look 3 group with Lee Sales and Annabelle Crabb, you'll know that people in there talk about food all the time. And I actually have been thinking I must share this book in that group because I think this would appeal to so many adults, but it's also very, very engaging for little people, which I think is what Scribble does a good job of. They make these books which look like pieces of art. They are pieces of art. They're very, very collectible. They're coffee table books, but they also have huge child appeal. So, you know, Scribble books, keep up the great work because you are making my house look beautiful. I have your books all around the house. Okay, the next one is the first in a new series called The Stardust School of Dance by Zanny Louise. Now, this one is Bertie the Ninja Dancer, but each of the books is looking at different characters. So there's Bertie Black, Lulu Lullaby, Edmund Fontaine, Priya Patel, and Lulu, the ballerina dreamer. And each of the books in the series is focusing on a different character. In this one here, Bertie has just moved in. Her dad has moved her into the house with stepmom and a stepbrother. And Bertie is quite amusing but touching. Bertie calls them Diane, the stepmother, fake mum, and she calls Marcus, the brother, her fake brother. And she continues to do that throughout most of the book. Except stepmom's really beautiful, and poor Marcus, he just wants to play with Bertie. He just wants to play with her. But it's this really nice look at blended families, and we don't know what's happened to Bertie's mum. Yeah, whether she has passed away or whether mum and dad just got divorced, but it's a really nice look at a blended family. And Zanny does a really good job of representing diversity in her characters and in their situations in all of her books. And this one is just gorgeous. It's aimed at, you know, a really young reading age. This is probably around a Billy B. Brown. This is like a 6 or 7 year old newly independent reader. There's some really great illustrations to encourage the young independent reader to move their way through the book. I really loved the illustrations. They've got great energy about them. And it's also a really engaging story. I don't know why I've got marks in there. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Bertie is she's just moved in with this step family, as I said, and she's spending all of her time practicing her ninja moves. But obviously her mum, whatever happened to her, was a dancer, because Bertie carries around this beautiful pen with a little dancer on the top, and ballet shoes on the dancer are quite worn, and Bertie's very attached to it. Anyway, she's up in a tree one day, having climbed it because she is a ninja. And she sees this hall across the road. It's a very humble little community hall, and there's somebody in there playing beautiful music, and she realizes there's a little dance school across the road. It is a very humble dance school. It is exactly the sort of dance school I would want my children to go to. There is no fancy costumes, and the dances are about the standard that I think I would be at. They are all over the place, and I think that's what's so utterly beautiful and adorable about them. So Bertie is not going to join this dance school, of course, because she is a ninja now, but she kind of gets almost suckered in by the warmth of the place. And she says at one stage, when she's asked if she'd like to join and perform Peter and the Wolf, she says, Bertie Black didn't perform. Performances were for people with two real parents who bought them flowers and hugged them after the show. Bertie didn't have those things. I thought that was really touching. I really, you know, that's the case for so many kids, that they don't want to do something because of their family situation. In this case, you know, Bertie knows that at the end of the show, she's not got a mum and dad that are going to hand her a bunch of flowers, so she feels like she's not worthy almost of being in this performance. But of course we know that, you know, there's all sorts of situations around the world and in our communities, and we have to embrace all of those. And this book does such a beautiful job of that. I also really like the teacher, who is Madame Martine, and she was a dancer of quite a high standard at one stage, and she's had some sort of an accident and an injury, and she now hobbles around, and she can't perform anymore, but instead she does what she's very passionate about. She encourages young children to dance. And it says here, Madame Martine's skirt billowed behind her as she hobbled around to switch on the music. I love that description of her skirt billowing, and we get that sense that she is injured, but she's still very passionate about what she does. The writing is top-notch, it's sophisticated, it's fast-paced, it's very, very engaging, it's for very newly independent readers, and despite the fact that it is about dance, it's for the dancers and for the non-dancers. It's for the ninjas and it's for the little ballerinas. It's really great. And I love chapter books for newly independent readers which don't talk down to the reader, which respect the reader, respect that the young reader can deal with a situation involving a step family and an injured ballet teacher and all of those things that we face in real life. I think we underestimate children. Children are aware that life is not all lollipops, and they can cope with seeing diversity in books, and they can cope with seeing the light and the dark in books. And not that there's really any dark in Stardust School of Dance, but they can cope with, yeah, they can just cope with challenges, because we all face challenges, my friends. So, you know, very distressed when I see parents only wanting their children to read the colourful fairy books which shall remain unnamed, but you all know which ones I'm talking about, where nothing actually happens and they are just drivel and there's like 200 of them. These are not like that. They're great. Right, the last book that I'm going to talk about is, at the moment, my favourite young adult book of the year. It is The Surprising Power of a Good Dumpling. That is an excellent title. It is by Wei Chim, somebody I have admired for a long time. I have really liked all of her books. The first books that I read of hers, I think they were her first books, were the Chook Chook series set in China. I do love chooks. I have always owned chooks. I don't at the moment due to an unfortunate incident with a fox. Anyway, move on. But I loved the Chook Chook series, and I've loved everything else that she's written. Freedom Swimmers was fantastic. This one, gosh, she's outdone herself with this one. It's young adult. I hope that she stays writing middle grade and younger reader books. But yeah, if you could write a few more young adult in between, that would be great, Wei. I have done an interview with Wei on the blog this week or last week, which you can have a look at. But in this book, we're looking at an Australian-Chinese family. And Wei herself is Australian-Chinese-American. So she said in her interview this was probably the most authentic book that she herself had written. It is about, the main character is a girl called Anna, who is about 16 or 17, and her hands are really full. She's looking after her siblings at home. She has a much younger little brother who's in maybe grade 1 or 2. She has a sister who's very bright and is on a scholarship at a local private school, and she lives with her mum and her dad. However, her mum has some really serious mental health issues and spends a lot of time in her bedroom, a lot of time, like days, weeks, months on end, doesn't come out, doesn't participate in family life, doesn't acknowledge her children, is completely unable to. Dad is a potentially typical, and this is a generalization, Chinese man who is really determined he is going to succeed, his kids are going to succeed, and it looks at the stigma around mental health issues in migrant families often. And Wei talks about that quite openly. That was her, one of her inspirations, I suppose, to break down some of those stigmas. The father, they own a restaurant. Sounds like a really great restaurant. Like, I wish it actually existed. I would like to go there. And Dad is spending increasing amounts of time at the restaurant. He's even staying there overnight quite a lot because I don't think he can cope with Mum. So Anna is left in charge a lot, and she's really struggling. And she's a teenager, and she's just met this lovely young boy who's actually the delivery driver at her dad's restaurant, called Rory, and it's sort of her first relationship. You know, she's got her own stuff going on. She's a teenager, and she wants to be a teenager, and she wants to be accepted by the peers at her school. So it's jam-packed with issues that typical teens are facing, and then it's got this beautiful story woven throughout it, this other layer to it that is this look at how tricky it can be for second generation migrant children in Australia and the issues that they particularly face. It's really fantastic. It's great. Anyway, Mum's mental health gets a lot worse, to the point that Mum needs to be, after quite an awful incident, which actually was really hard to read in the family restaurant, Mum has to go into a psychiatric ward, and then that brings with it a whole other layer of complexity. The male character, Rory, is beautiful. He is the type of boy that I would love my own eldest daughter to date one day, except she'll never date. As I was saying that, I thought, she's never going to date. She's never going to be on Instagram. She's never going to be on any kind of social media, and she's going to stay at home forever. Anyway, if that doesn't happen, Rory is a beautiful character. And I said last night at this talk I did to the parents, boys need to read stories with girls in them, and girls need to read stories with boys in them. And this is such a beautiful relationship, fledgling relationship between Rory and Anna. It's a really gentle, lovely teen relationship, explored really beautifully. And gosh, it's nice. It's everything you want in a teen relationship. It's beautiful. And Rory is he's just divine. Yeah, anyway, it's got a great conclusion. It's quite a long one. It's definitely for readers from sort of 14 up, I think, maybe 13, depending on the maturity of your reader. Maybe I'll give it to my 13-year-old niece this weekend. But it's, oh gosh, I really enjoyed it. Something else I really enjoyed was the cover design, and I know that is terribly shallow of me, but look at that cover. Look at the way the chopsticks in the corner have the noodle, which then turns into the word dumpling. Look at Anna's nail polish. Like, I want to know what colour shellac that is, because that is really cool. She has really cool nail polish. I love that her face is right in that Chinese container of food. I love the chopsticks. I love the soy sauce. I love the dumpling. I love the descriptions of eating dumplings in this book. I went to Sydney last weekend. The book is set in Sydney, and I went to Sydney last weekend, or a couple of weekends ago, I can't remember now, and I ate at one of the restaurants that Wei Chim recommends, Din Tai Fung, and it was fantastic. I love soup dumplings, and soup, she describes in this book how to eat soup dumplings appropriately, and I think she must have eaten a lot of soup dumplings too in her life to have written it so beautifully. I really like what she says about dumplings here. Dumplings are the great social equalizer, and so many cultures and communities have some version of meat wrapped in dough with recipes handed down through generations. It's one of the reasons I love them so much. Plus, they taste so good. And I just thought that was such a great, and it's true, so many cultures have some form of dumpling, meat wrapped or vegetable wrapped bread. This is a description of the father and his inability to cope with the mum's, him facing his wife, who he loves dearly, his wife's mental illness. He's just finished saying he's not going to come home tonight, that he's got so much admin to do at work. There's too much admin I have to catch up on. A sodden lump of bun is caught in my throat as I watch them sit in silence, not looking at each other. They won't even talk about what happened. My father won't try to fix anything. He's just running away. Disappointment tastes like chalky lotus bean. It's full of quotable quotes like that. I love it. Now, another thing, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly. I did text a friend of mine this morning and saying, how does one say this word? But there is this, I'm going to say this incorrectly, there's this Yutping language in it, which, so Wei herself grew up understanding Cantonese, but maybe not being able to read and write Cantonese. Clearly an incredibly complex language. Yutping is a romanization of Cantonese. So it's like, I guess, a westernized, I hesitate to use the word butchered version of Cantonese, but it's a version of Cantonese that is often used to make it, I guess, perhaps slightly easier for people to read. As I read it the first time, I was confused. I don't know if you can see any of it on the page. It's got letters and numbers throughout. As I read it, I thought, because I was reading an uncorrected proof, I thought, is that a mistake? Are they going to fix that up? Are there going to be Chinese characters in there in the final version? But no, that is Yutping. It is a sort of westernized version, I guess, of Cantonese. It's also got lots of text language in it, which I really liked, and I thought that it broke up the text in the book nicely as well. As well as beautiful cover design, each chapter starts with a really beautiful page of what I'm going to call wallpaper, even though it's clearly not wallpaper. This is a page of dumplings. So each chapter starts with this wallpaper of some sort of Chinese representation of culture, and I just really liked it. I thought that was really beautiful. There's Chinese bands. I loved it. Oh, steaming basket. Oh, now I want to eat soup dumplings. I do feel when I am slightly under the weather or I'm exhausted, all I want to eat is either agashi tofu, Japanese, or dumplings, particularly soup dumplings. I find them so very comforting. They're like the ultimate comfort food. I was really convinced I was getting the flu the other day, thank you to my 11-year-old. And I actually Uber ordered some agadashi tofu. I felt really unwell. I was just exhausted. I thought, bugger this, I'm going to Uber Eats some agadashi tofu, and I swear it made me feel so much better. And I feel the same about dumplings. If I could eat dumplings for the rest of my life for every meal, I would be so, so happy. I have a very dear friend, Di Backhouse, I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her, who made dumplings with us recently with the girls and I. And oh my gosh, I still dream about them. We made heaps, we ate heaps. I ate more than anybody, and then she sent me home with bags and bags of frozen homemade dumplings, which were devoured very, very quickly. I've got to stop talking about food, I really do. Okay, have a great weekend. Thanks for those that were able to join me at this ridiculously early hour. Most of you are probably at work, but yeah, really beautiful books this week. So links are there if you want to buy them or read a little bit more about the synopsis of each, and I will see you again next week. And now I can't find the end live video button. This is awkward. Found it.